if you're going through like a tough time, that's okay. I think we kind of don't hear that enough. And I think the cliche there is, as long as these tough times don't change the characteristics of your first principles and who you are as an entrepreneur, you'll be okay.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Expedition Business, where we talk to inspiring South African entrepreneurs about the highs and lows of their business journey and how on earth they manage to keep the flame of business adventure burning. Because facing your day with a smile is sometimes the toughest thing you have to do. My name is Christelle Brosley Venter, your host and the one privileged enough to be talking to Lolo Ndlovu, founder of Sneaker Shack. But before I introduce Lolo to you, I would like to remind you to subscribe, like, comment, and share this podcast with as many of your friends and family as possible. Without your help, we cannot continue to share the amazing stories of our South African entrepreneurs. But back to Lolo and the Sneaker Shack success story. From sweating it out in a container and cleaning sneakers in Maboneng 6 years ago, to being a business case study at universities, Lolo Ndlovu's Sneaker Shack has expanded to 11 locations. And they have campaigns like Project Run, which we'll talk about later, meaning there is more than just useful convenience for the young and hip. Lolo, welcome to Expedition Business.
Crystal, good morning. Thank you for having me, and good morning to your listeners. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much for the time that you have taken out to talk to us. We really do appreciate it. But I'd like to know from that intro, what have I left out about Lolo Ndlovu?
Well, oh God, I mean, it is an intro, so it's a summary to everything that the Sneaker Shack journey has been. But I think you've covered it quite well. You're a seasoned veteran, Christelle, so I think that was that was a really nice intro.
We definitely need to expand on that. Lolo, fresh from the US, young and educated, starting your own thing, was it always on the cards or did Sneaker Shack just happen?
Look, I think so. If I go back to my childhood, I grew up in a household where my dad was an entrepreneur, and I'm the youngest of three, and just kind of watching all the journeys. I think my grandfather included, who was a big part of our picture and our life, also like a massive entrepreneur. So I think entrepreneurship was the one that was definitely on the cards. Sneaker Shack, per se, I think was a later idea that had come about, in university. At the time, you've kind of done the journey of finishing high school. I went on and studied business in university, but with a very clear idea that it's going to be entrepreneurship. So really honing into ideas. I'm a big proponent and believer in following passions. I have a huge passion for sports, and unfortunately just wasn't good enough to make it at the highest level of sports. As a kind of like, let's call it senior player. I think once you're about 17, 18, you kind of have to have that career path as far as sports goes. But there are many other ways to get into sports. I think one of them was how do I enter the kind of active lifestyle business framework, and there was just this massive opportunity around sneakers, and not in the retail but like in the service, and that's kind of brought about by this idea that Christelle, you're a runner. I think you were going for a run this morning, and these aren't cheap shoes, if you will. I think you're spending upwards of 1,500 to 3,000-4,000 rand a pair.
Easy.
And I think it's going to become more and more important for services like Sneaker Shack to actually take good care of those, type of sneakers, just to give them that, expanded lifespan. So I think that's just kind of one of the angles that, really helped me, hone passion for this product. So yeah, entrepreneurship, has been on the cards for a while. But Sneaker Shack, like any other entrepreneur, is just kind of identifying, a good opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And you've also got a spot in the book every entrepreneur has to read.
Yes. Yeah.
While reading your chapter in the book, I definitely walked away, amongst other things, with the importance of purpose to you. Did you feel like cleaning sneakers was your life's work from the beginning?
Yeah. Look, I mean, I think purpose is probably the single most important, aspect in business. And I think this is a very kind of subjective or personal view. I don't think all businesses it's kind of necessary to have a purpose embedded. But I think, if you look at society and and the kind of analysis on the kind of global framework at the moment, I think it's important for us to be doing things that contribute in some meaningful way to either our communities or the world at large. And I think naturally entrepreneurs are curious, passionate people. And I think if you could, if you do have the privilege, I would almost say, to kind of hone in on one of those passions. I think purpose comes sort of easily after that. But I'm not, I think personally, I think it's hugely important. And it's certainly one, purpose is certainly something that has kind of led my journey as an entrepreneur. So I think if you can tap into a bit of purpose, it always goes a long way.
Mm-hmm. Okay. You've also mentioned that you are now, I think, the third generation of entrepreneurs. How did that make a difference in your journey?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think two things. It certainly made it a bit more pressurized. Just because if you kind of look back, there have been successes and certainly failures along the way too. With certain aspects of the business not doing so well in certain periods of time. If you think about my dad and certainly my grandfather as well. But I think what it also provided, Crystal, is a sense of almost like fearlessness, because I think entrepreneurship can be something that's quite fearful, and I think people tend to be a bit more risk averse. So I think I was able to kind of garner that muscle to take risks quite early, when I think most people would feel, if you think about it, who wants to open a business that just cleans sneakers? It just sounds a little ridiculous on paper. And I think what entrepreneurship gives is like, if you do have the data, the analysis, you kind of done the case study on the market and its opportunity, like the next thing is to actually do it, is just to take that leap. And I think that's where most people generally sort of stutter. So I think kind of growing up in this entrepreneurship family, my appetite for risk is a lot higher. I would imagine than the average person, because I've seen failures and I've seen them inform better decisions to even bigger successes. So I'm not too afraid of trying something and failing. I think it's just something that I've been exposed to quite early, and I think that is certainly some sort of an advantage.
But doesn't it also give you a lot of extra pressure because your dad has been successful, your grandfather's been successful? Doesn't that add to the pressure that you already have as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I said, it's I think initially it is pressure, and I think it kind of just talking about this pressure. If I speak to my dad about entrepreneurship, or my grandfather, they'd often say no, like it's no pressure at all. Like this is the whole point of entrepreneurship. You need to go out, give it a knock, and if you get knocked down, you kind of dust yourself off and come back. So I think a lot of the pressure is often self-induced. So like you put pressure on yourself to kind of, okay, well, I've seen success stories, and I think every entrepreneur themselves wants to be a success story. So I think it's certainly a lot of pressure, but I think once we realize that a lot of this pressure is actually sort of self-imposed, where we have support systems that actually want to see us succeed, then I think slowly that pressure turns into like good motivation.
Definitely, definitely. As long as you can get over that pressure. But
Yes, exactly.
and then you also the last born. Did that
Yes.
have any difference to how you approached things?
No, I think it was actually, also an advantage, because, I mean, this is probably, the craziest idea that, my family had heard of. Like, why don't you start something normal as an entrepreneur? Like, you had to go, I mean, you really had to go left field. And I think being the last born is like, people have to be kind to you. So they have to be like, oh, no, he's net the barber. Like, let him just do his thing. And he he'll figure it out. So I think I was given a lot of leeway, to just kind of explore my imagination, without too much pressure. I think where's my older brother, who's in the liquor business and a distribution, export import business. I certainly felt like he probably had a bit more pressure to, like, hone in on something that's sustainable. And it certainly is today. And yeah, I just felt it was probably less. It gave me a bit more breathing room, being the lastborn than the firstborn. I feel for the guys that are, the firstborn, that have to be the example to all the other kids.
Well, maybe we can set up a last born entrepreneur summit one day.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you can gather us all together, because we're a bit chaotic lastborns, hey?
Absolutely, absolutely. I know that very, very well. But just following up on the book every entrepreneur has to read, you've mentioned in the book the 70-30 principle that I found quite intriguing. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about how that works?
Yeah. So yeah, sure. I mean, I think it's an idea that was derived from an author, American author who's quite renowned in the marketing world. I think I think one of his key works was a book called Lynchpin, a guy called Seth Godin. And essentially what it kind of describes is this idea that perfection doesn't necessarily exist. And the most important thing is gathering enough data with the right amount of conviction. So usually when someone's trying to explore a new idea, or a new business venture, a new career opportunity, essentially there's always going to be a sense of doubt. Am I doing the right thing? Am I sure that this is, like, going to be successful? And the truth of that matter is, you won't actually know that for sure until you actually have been through it. So what this, 70-30 rule just kind of speaks to, try to figure out, if you have, like, if 100 is the total sum of perfection, as you kind of go on this journey, your goal isn't to get to 100. Your goal is to get to about 70%. So depending on the decision that you're making, whether it's gathering data for, in our cases, a new location, maybe a new kind of revenue stream, whether it's our pickup and delivery business, whatever it is, all you need is about 70% of of that data. And due diligence and market research, I'm a huge proponent on it. It is super important. It's not advocating making decisions on a whim, but it's you will never reach that 100% totality, certainty, and surety that I guess most of us want. What you really want to do is focus on reaching 70%, whatever framework that is, based on the decision you're making. And once you reach that 70%, I think cognitively, you have to see that as that's the point at which you become certain. And the 30% that's kind of remaining, and retrospectively it sounds quite obvious, but that 30% that's remaining, you often find it as you start executing that 70%. You're like, oh, okay, that makes total sense. Things start, we kind of call it like, things start falling into place, right? And they fall into place because you've started taking action and because you've got that conviction to move forward, even if you don't have all the answers. And I think part of it is also trying to break this, this idea of like, not moving until things are perfect, because let's face it, you can wait your whole life before things, all the ducks are in the row, so to speak. If you've got 10 ducks and 7 of them are in a row, they can start walking, and the other 3 will just sort of figure out like, okay, these guys are going, and they sort of fall in line, as but it's important to have that initial movement. I think some guys, opt for this, 60-40, like, I think that's, it's slightly harder, and you get others that opt for like the 80-20. I've really found the 70-30 for me to be the optimal. So I think, just in summary, it encourages, execution, decision making, and this moving away from, perfection paralysis, if you will. And as an entrepreneur, you just don't have the time to wait for things to be perfect. You have to be certain that you won't have all the information and still be able to take action based on the information that you do have.
And that it's okay if it's not perfect. I think a lot of people never move, as you say, because they wait for it to be perfect.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's something that, while you were talking, a very big fact is that the more educated you are, the less the tendency is that you would become an entrepreneur. Because you can't, the more educated you are, the more you see what could go wrong. And the less educated you are, the more you just miss those things and you just go and do.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think there's this huge movement around the validity in entrepreneurship for things like an MBA, for example, right? So I think someone with an MBA, I think over time we've seen just don't really make great entrepreneurs, because their decision making matrix just gets so complicated, and the less of that clutter you have, and the more you're working on into whether you call it intuition, gut feel, chutzpah, whatever it is, like, it's probably it's a lot more intelligent than any sort of MBA that you'll have. It's this sort of intuitive feel that, I think with less academic clutter, you can listen to that inner voice, in a much more clearer fashion. So definitely, just try not to load yourself with degree after degree after degree. Just figure out what it is that you want to do, like really get into it. And I often find that's it's quite a nice place to be.
Absolutely. Lolo, but from the outside, it almost looks like you're a one-man army, but you talk extensively about the not so hidden ingredients in scaling your business, the people in your team. What are some of the rewards or growing pains you've had when scaling your team?
So I'm certainly not a one-man band. I mean, of course, that's how I started. At the moment, Sneaker Shack employs over 70 people across all our stores, and a management team of about 8. I've got a great COO, a fantastic marketing team. And half the time I have no idea what they're talking about, because they're just so creative, and so it's certainly not a one-man band. And I think one of the difficult things has been this process of building a team, and I think sort of like unique to Sneaker Shack is that how do you convince people to go on this journey with you, right? And it's a journey that for the most part, every single person on the team has never been on, because this is essentially we're almost at the cutting edge of this new services for this new growing consumer, and none of us really have experience in the product and in the service. So, I think just kind of, getting people excited about this, this new frontier, and kind of painting this picture of, of why sneaker care is going to become a really important service. And, you basically kind of, selling your idea to the team, I think certainly was, a really important thing when I sort of, consider hiring. Um, you know, Another big thing was, because we're in retail, you have to convince landlords to give you some floor space.
Mm-hmm.
And initially, Crystal, I can't tell you how tough that was. And, and fair game, like, super understandable. Landlords need a guarantee of rental, and like this almost like surety that you will be there in 5 years. And, a lot of them just did not think that, I mean, this has not been tried and tested, and landlords are naturally risk averse.
Mm-hmm.
So that whole convincing process, of trying to get landlords to really understand our story, and sharing a lot of data with them, and these are the trends that we're seeing, and this is looking super exciting in as a space. You know, massive, massive, massive headaches, and lots of like disappointing conversations where like you come back home and you just really knocked down. You just feel like, okay, like, what's the point? If no one believes in this, then, there's no point. It's like really, those things that kind of question your direction as an entrepreneur. Um, yeah, I mean, there's been many, and I think, like those two, have certainly been like, the tough ones. And I'm glad now, it's kind of more, like the kind of, tables have turned where, landlords are asking us, hey, we need you in our center, and we have a whole host of guys, just trying to join our team. Yeah, it's just been amazing to see how, sticking to your guns and to your intuition, and to your passion and purpose, it's, if you really do have the conviction, you can really, um, you know um, like just change the perception of the market, and and have and have that sort of favor, or that wind behind your sails instead of in front of you.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, it sounds really romantic, the position where you are in right now. But going back to the days when the landlords didn't want to give you floor space,
Yeah.
how on earth did you get through those tough times?
It was, Crystal, it was tough. I'll tell you one story. I won't mention the landlord, but I had just, it was when I was looking for my first property outside of Maboneng. Now, Maboneng, I was there for, about 8 or 9 months. And
Mm-hmm.
that was real. Like, there was really the kind of experimental, you know trying to hone this model and say, okay, now, what would this really look like, at sort of in the main market. And I had put together a pretty comprehensive sort of outlook and study of like, what this business actually is, and you know and the role it can play in the service industry. And I was convinced of it because I'd spent, 8 months developing this product, and it's sound, and it's, I've got the conviction. um, and you and I remember going to this one landlord because, they have a fantastic, uh, set of properties that, we would sort of plug into quite easily. And we'd had the meeting, we sat down, um, and I could just feel like, 2-3 minutes into my spiel, eyes are rolling over. People are like, what the hell is this guy talking about? What is
Mm-hmm.
this? Okay, okay, so, and like a lot of like reductionist thinking, like, okay, so you guys just, okay, so you clean shoes, don't tell me the whole beautiful story. Okay, it's just so it's like just kind of faced with a lot of reductionist, and it's like, you know yeah, it's, I think, in like personally, those were really difficult times because, it's something that you work really hard on, and people like just reduce it all the time. You walk into a room and it's just being reduced. And I can't tell you how. I'm just thinking about it now, and I'm getting a few goosebumps. Yeah, I can't tell you how, how painful that was. And it was quite a few landlords. Like, to be honest, I think, I'd walked out of like 4 or 5 meetings, and it was the same thing. And like big reputable guys. And then I realized, okay, maybe I should start going to the independent shopping centers, the ones that don't have this, listed portfolio. It's just like, some guys in the property space, the guys that are actually a bit more entrepreneurial, so when you start going to them, they're like, I understand, I see, and they, so it's the smaller independent guys that first sort of gave us the opportunity, and then the other guys are like, oh wait, hang on, like didn't we chat to you earlier? Didn't you come to the office? So I'm like, yes, I did. I did. You guys have my deck. It's on your table. Yeah. So I mean, yeah, and yeah, I think I did have these moments where, honestly, I would call my dad and say, listen, I think I made a huge mistake, because, I mean, these guys are in property. They know what they're talking about. I'm a newbie here, and he'd be like, dude, nonsense. Like, listen, if you're going to be an entrepreneur, and you can't take a couple of no's, then you should rethink this whole thing. People are definitely going to tell you no, right? And they're right to do that, because they're protecting their own interests. But it's, just kind of being reminded that, like, it's this is part of it. Like doors aren't just going to open as you walk in. Like, it's going to be tough, and you're going to question yourself, and you're going to feel the doubt creeping in, and you're going to want to sit at home the whole day and just close your eyes under the blanket, and just tell yourself, okay, like maybe this is just not it. And all of the stuff and I'd been through all of that. I think that there was a point where I really thought, okay, it's pointless to keep going to these landlords, because I just don't have a business here. I really don't think it's strong enough, and they almost convinced me that it's not strong enough. But yeah, just kind of, just going back to that conviction. And I think that's why it's important to have people around you that kind of support your journey, like regardless of your difficulties, and just kind of keep you motivated. Yeah, don't make me emotional, Crystal.
How so?
No, I just, it's when you think about this, like just now when I'm thinking about it, yeah, it's I really have respect for entrepreneurs, and like especially like the guys that have failed. Like, you speak to these entrepreneurs, and like, this is my third or fourth business. I had this business, then it had to close down, and just this idea that they dust themselves off and they start again, and they all these things. I just think about, like, I think about my dad, and it's such a beautiful story of resilience. Like, entrepreneurs have probably the most resilient hearts, and I'm just when I think about that, it's just
getting emotional there.
Yeah.
Awesome. But I think the reality is that the majority of people starting out as entrepreneurs don't make it to be a successful entrepreneur. They do give up along the way. And unfortunately, those are the people that need support, that don't necessarily have it at home or in their circles.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I think what's also, like, really important, are these entrepreneurship communities. Like, I see a lot of these, incubators, these startup, Joburg startup communities. I think that do a really good job, to help entrepreneurs, because I mean, like, you're right, it's, I'm not sure what the stat is, but I don't know. I think it's about 70% or 80% of the businesses that are started fail within the first 5 years or something like that.
Yeah.
And that's that's, if you kind of interrogate some of those failures, it's not necessarily that it was a bad product. It's just like, you ran out of steam, because you just faced with this so much adversity, whether it's like, like, you're struggling to find the right funding, or you're struggling to find the right partnerships, or like securing good talent as far as the team goes. And when you think about it, all of these things can be averted through, like through strong support and mentorship groups. So yeah, I'd really, advise like new entrepreneurs, if you are going to start something, try finding a community of entrepreneurs that, can hold you accountable and can also play as that sounding board. I think that's, it's absolutely critical to survival.
Absolutely. Almost let me think of, I think Tim Ferriss calls it the tribe, and that you are involved in, but you've been involved in the Branson Center of Entrepreneurship. How did that influence your thinking?
Yeah, so I mean, like, talk about the tribe. I'm a big fan of Tim Ferriss, and as well. Um, that a big part of. So I think just to give you some background. So I think at the time we had about 4 or 5 stores. There was this great opportunity to integrate Sneaker Shack into Virgin Active stores, or clubs, just kind of, playing on that customer journey, I think. Um, but anyways, yeah, I put together this sort of, pitch deck, and I got hold of Virgin Active, essentially kind of just knocked on their doors and say, hey, this is who I am. This is what we're doing. We're in the space. And I eventually got a meeting with them, where I flew down to Cape Town. I did my pitch. It's such a big difference between companies that have an entrepreneurial approach to business and those that don't, because again, first 3-4 minutes the room was lighting up, and eventually I stopped pitching, and it turned into this ideas session of like, oh, you know what, we should add this and this, and then very soon, like during that meeting, a guy called Wesley Noble. So we'd kind of paused the meeting, and that called a guy called Wesley Noble into the room, and he's the director of the Branson Enterprise in Africa. And he said, hey, listen, like sit down. You got to hear the story. This is Lolo. This is what they're doing. Sneaker Shack. It's really exciting. And so basically that's kind of how it happened. And I've been a fellow since then, and they've been critical in helping us develop the product, the brand, and unfortunately the COVID happened in 2020, where we had to slow down a lot of these Virgin Active efforts. They'd gone through a really tough time over that period, and they're starting to recover, which is fantastic. I think they're starting to see those numbers back in clubs, and very soon we'll start those conversations again, and sort of pick up from where we left off. But it was just a very serendipitous kind of engagement, but it's been really valuable to us.
Okay, so apart from the Branson Center of Entrepreneurship, you also have Brian Altridge, founder of Rockimamas, that is acting as a mentor. That's how I have it. How important is that mentorship to you?
Brian is probably one of the nicest people I have ever come across. I mean, just a heart of gold. It's just like a lover of South Africa, and a huge advocate of the South African story. I think he's a guy that sees potential from a mile away, and it was the nicest thing. He'd visited one of our branches in Bryanston a while back, and for whatever reason, he decided, hey, like, let me send. I think he'd found out by the staff, asking questions naturally, as Brian would, because he's a very curious guy. Just asking questions, how was this? How did this come about? And this and this. And I think someone had shared my name with him in the store, and I got a LinkedIn message from him saying, "Hey, listen, I'm Brian Altridge." And like, I know who you are, Brian Altridge. Like, this is like, wow. He's like, I just visited your store, and I just want to say it's an amazing job. This is I love to see South African businesses and services, kind of, daring to be different, and pioneering new spaces. And I immediately responded, hey, listen, this is a fantastic pleasure, and thank you so much for for taking the time to actually like send out a message. And I said, hey, like it would be great if I can just like sit down and just have a chat with you. And he was so open. He's like, yeah, absolutely. um, so we'd sat down, um, you know, had a coffee for the first time, and yeah, and it's just become this thing that we do, like whenever we both have time. um, you know, I, I think sometimes he feels like I just go there and cry to him, like, oh, Brian, operations, like, how did you get this right? And
Mm-hmm.
just yeah, he's just been a fantastic mentor, and a guardian, and just like a fantastic sounding board, and also like a massive, um, um, you know, he's such a darer, like a massive darer in the space, right? Kind of, just the kind of story of Rockamamas, and really taking the market by the horns, and trying something completely new. I think he's the first guy to kind of
Mm-hmm.
fast casual dining. I think he was the pioneer of fast casual in South Africa, and
Mm-hmm.
just kind of hearing his processes about taking risks, and yeah, it's been invaluable, Crystal. An amazing guy, a fantastic gentleman, and just an important mentor to me.
Well, well, sounds like we have to get him on Expedition Business very soon.
Yes, yes, absolutely, absolutely. I'm happy to do the intro for you.
Oh, fantastic, fantastic. I will hold you to that.
Okay.
um, okay, so you've mentioned earlier your down moments where things just didn't want to go your way, when people didn't want to believe in you, when you almost gave up. What methods do you use to regroup, refocus, and rejuvenate your soul?
Um, wow, it's an interesting question. Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, look, I think it's I think what I always try to do, and I think this is kind of a subconscious back of mind thing, Crystal. I think before, like, sort of delving into the actual sort of tools, like, to what get me through, is I always go back to my why, right? So it's always kind of going back to this point of, like, what was that initial conviction that made you pursue this in the first place, right? And and once you start doing that, like, um Elon Musk talks about the sort of first principles thinking, like, what is fundamentally true about this business that you're embarking on. And I and my first principles, like for Sneaker Shack, have always been that, or at least, yeah, in my case, one of those first principles, is basically that, people are never going to stop wearing footwear, right? So regardless of how I'm feeling about my business, and things are tough, the fact is people are not gonna stop wearing footwear, or they're not gonna slow down in their use of footwear. People live in cities, or we're adventurous, we go hiking, and all of the stuff requires footwear, right? So that hasn't changed, right? So kind of
Mm,
like really interrogating my conviction. Okay, so so that hasn't changed. And another first principle of mine, is that, like, you know footwear is going to increasingly become more and more expensive, and we
mm-hmm,
can look at the data of that and say, okay, well, like, so that hasn't changed too. Like, so fundamentally, these two first principles haven't changed. And the third one is that, like, footwear is becoming more and more synthetic. It's lighter, it's all these, like, very different materials that are now being used as technology advances. So people are going to need specialized care to take care of these highly prized, expensive assets, like, which you know which are very much in use in a on a daily basis. So just kind of going back to those first principles, at a base level, allows me to be like, hey, okay, if you think critically, the business case is fine. It's really solid. Right? And and I think that tends to take away a lot of the kind of anxiety, because I think when you start feeling overwhelmed, and all that, like, what we end up doing is, like, we kind of end up throwing the baby out with the bathwater, like, or the business isn't good enough. um like, where in actual fact, it could be one or two things which have really got you down. So
Mm-hmm.
so the first thing I do is go through my my first principles, make sure that, like, they're in check. And often when you do find that they are in check, that's 70% of the problem gone. So I'm back to, like, a good confidence level. um
Uh-huh.
and and I think once I've kind of passed that, another proponent, is time. I think, just to kind of, in my case, you know knocking on landlords' doors, there was no inherent um, fault in the business model, but there could have been a timing issue. Like, this just was not the right time, for landlords to be hearing of such a product. So,
Mm.
I think I always try to get to the root, like, by trying to, interrogate myself in defining, like, this problem. Okay, like, you're feeling down, you're feeling not, unmotivated. You have to answer your own why question. Like, why
Mm.
are you feeling unmotivated, right? Like, did a customer say something today? Like, did a deal that was supposed to happen didn't go through? And what does that say about the business? And if the business is sound, then I think, then the next thing is, okay, so what does it say about me as an entrepreneur, right? Okay, hey, like, Lolo, you really have to, like, practice, like, resilience, or you have to practice a bit of patience, because people don't aren't necessarily working at the same sort of time frame as you would work. Like, people don't understand the product the way you do. So exercise some of that patience, and just kind of like, nursing myself to a place of like, sober rationality of like, the extent of the problem which has caused me to feel down.
Mm-hmm.
And then also try to diagnose the ways I contribute to this feeling, right? Like,
Mm.
I'm talking to Christelle now. I've told her this amazing business plan. Her and I should go into business. And Christelle says, "Ah, no, this is not for me." I could feel knocked by that, but, like, it's I need to understand that, oh, maybe Christelle's got all this stuff going on at the moment, and she's busy as it is. Like, it's not necessarily, like, the business that's not right. Maybe it's the timing. So, like, just kind of really going through those rational processes that kind of keep you
Mm.
afloat.
Mm.
Um, and also, I think, like, do things that also get your mind off things, man. Like, whether it's going for a run, or you want to go for, like, a long bike ride, or maybe, like, just spend the weekend with your laptop off, and go see some friends, go watch the rugby, go to a bar, have some drinks with some friends, and talk about something else that's just not business related, and just try to get your mind off things. But before you do that, I think it's important just to go through those that sort of first principles thinking, so you can alleviate most of the anxiety. So it's so that it's not a fundamental problem with your business. And maybe you have one or two things that you need to work on, whether it's either your understanding of timing, or if it's just kind of working on your patience, or maybe working on your communication. Like, okay, you know what, like, you're feeling down because something didn't go your way. It's possible that the way you communicate something isn't the right way. Uh, like, whatever it is, it's a business assessment, it's a self-assessment, and then try to take your mind off things
Mm.
for a while,
Mm.
and then spend some time trying to regroup. And yeah, and come back Monday, and see how you feel. And if you need a bit more time to regroup, you absolutely do that. Like,
Mm.
I'm a big proponent of, like, try to avoid this, compulsive burnout as much as you can. If you need to say, yes, like, I'm trying to get this business off the ground and this week has just been horrible, then take 3 days off, reassess. Don't keep going and keep knocking your head on a wall, because at the end of the day, you're also going to run out of steam. So, it's important to be patient with that whole process, because it takes like you could be going through a tough time for, like, let's say 2-3 months. It takes 1 or 2 meetings, while you're trying to just push yourself going, just to push you over the edge, and then that's when you say, okay, that's it, I give up. Where what you could have done is actually just pause, instead of carrying on. Like, that's not giving up. It's pausing. Like, take a breath, pause, reassess, go through your first principles, do a bit of a self-assessment, maybe strategize on how you're going to sort of come back, and then try again.
How does Lolo Ndlovu take a break? How does your weekends look like?
So, I've recently come into this realization that I really enjoy long distance running.
Oh, yay!
Yeah. So so, like, this weekend I'm doing the Sunlam. So I'm not doing the full marathon. I'm just doing the 10K because they don't have a 21. So I'm about I'm like a half marathon kind of runner, and I just found, like, Christelle, I can't tell you. It's just this amazing piece when you start hitting that runner's high. I think it's my office away from the office. Like, that's where I kind of clear my thoughts and things become a lot less hectic, than they should be. So I enjoy my running. I enjoy my cycling. I love the bush. So I'm never afraid to kind of just take a weekend and say I'm offline. For the weekend. I'm a huge fan of sport. So, I think, like, whenever there's a big sporting weekend, I really get immersed. I get immersed into it. I really take on, like, the kind of feeling of, like, the athletes on the pitch, and whenever possible, I try to be there live.
Yes.
Just to experience, like, a different type of like emotion. I have I have my brother, who's like lives just up the road from me, and we like going enduro bike riding, and just spending an afternoon out in the veld, just kind of riding.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I've got a couple of things that just help me take my mind off things. I'm a big fan of art. So I like, and art is incredible because you really can get lost in art. And just kind of interpreting different artworks, like going to galleries and just immersing yourself in a bit of art. And I also find it, like, very very beneficial to, like, a creative and entrepreneurial thinking. So because I kind of feel like I can be very compulsive. So if I'm not immersed in my business, I need to be immersed in something else. Like, I'm terrible at idling. I can't sit and just be in front of a TV and that's my downtime. No, that's just going to make me anxious.
Okay.
Cool. Yeah. So yeah, a couple of things. Yeah.
Wow. It is a mouthful. But you mentioned sport, being involved in sport right in the beginning. As far as I know, you've been involved in cricket.
How did you know that?
That's my job to find out.
Wow. Yeah. So like, 2 major sports in my life growing up. One of them, is cricket. I had the privilege of, like, playing provincial cricket as a youngster, and the other is soccer, football. I thought also equally kind of had a fantastic journey in playing at a pretty decent level, and unfortunately, I never sort of turned professional, and I'm not sure if I actually really did want to. So that was my early involvement in sports, and I think vicariously through business, I try as best as I can to keep that passion alive.
Okay, So, do you have a lot of cricket players whose shoes you are cleaning?
Yes, yeah. So we have a great relationship with quite a few guys. A friend of mine, um, Temba Bavuma, who's I think we know him.
Mm-hmm.
He represents the Proteas, and yeah, we yeah, great friends, and we do a lot of work with his foundation. So a lot of his friends, Lungi and in the rest of them, customers of ours. We have an ambassador, Tony DeZorzi, who's a Sneaker Shack ambassador as well, and an up and coming prospect for South African cricket as well. He's also just amazing human being. Um, you know, on the women's game, as well. We've got guys like Sune Lewis, who's I think she's still captaining the women's team.
Mm-hmm.
And a couple of others, who we've just kind of pulled closer to our brand as friends of Sneaker Shack, and we also have a few in football, in rugby as well. Yeah, I don't want to do too much name dropping, but yeah, like we have a lot of friends in the sporting community, which is just fantastic.
Wow, I just love it when you do name dropping. But something that I'm thinking of is, when are you going to sponsor the Proteas? Be the main
Oh,
sponsor of a Proteas.
that is the dream. That is the dream, and like that is where my real practice of patience comes in. So in good time,
Uh-huh.
in good time. Hope it's around the corner. But I think that would be that would definitely be a dream, come true, just to kind of just look at what we've built, and have that be like on the jersey of the Proteas. Is Yeah, I can't tell you how much of a dream that is. It would be amazing.
Wow. Did I touch on a very sensitive subject there?
Yes, you did. Yeah, it would be amazing.
Oh, wow. Wow. I'm impressed. But you mentioned your Protea Friends Foundation, but you've also got Project Run on the go. Do you want to tell us a little bit quickly about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So Project Run is it's something that was founded by one of our heads of marketing, and it's she's a passionate runner, and I think what she realized is that, hey, like, I have a whole bunch of old shoes that I don't really wear, and I don't have anyone to sort of hand them down to. Like, we should start something like this drive where we get good quality pre-loved shoes, and like, let's partner with foundations, and help like the next athlete begin their journey. And you just thought it was just what a fantastic idea, and we've really embedded it into the business. And essentially what we do is we encourage our customers that if you do have a pair of shoes that you don't quite use anymore, or you've brought it in for a clean, and you're like, hey, listen, actually I don't really wear these anymore. um, you know you can donate it to Project Run, and we've partnered with a whole bunch of NGOs, who champion sports in one way or the other, and we distribute these sneakers to them, and and they get like sent to the right people that are beginning their journeys, whether it's if athletics, rehabilitation, um, and just kind of extending this idea of the life of a shoe,
Mm,
not
mm,
not only for us, but but for the next person. And it's been phenomenal. We have partnerships with Total Sports, as well, where we have um, our collection bins in about 40 Total Sports across the country. So we're seeing huge impact, as part of that. And again, it speaks to this, grassroots development of of sports. And like, I think if companies can do, small steps, collectively are massive leaps. So I think it's just kind of our way of like really kind of um, asserting our belief in the future of South African sports, and South African young people. Yeah, it's just it's been an amazing journey, and yeah, I encourage like your listeners just to check out Project Run and what we're doing there, and if you're a corporate or anything, we would love for people to be a part of it.
Mm. Wow. And I can imagine you've got a lot of stories from people that took over those shoes and what they've done with it and what it has meant to them.
Absolutely. Like we have guys that have run marathons in their shoes. Like some incredible stories around like people that have been training bare feet. And then for the first time competing in a good pair of shoes, and these aren't like dilapidated shoes. Like they're in good condition, they're in race condition, and just the kind of difference it makes in their love for like sports and love for athletics and running. The impact is just incredible, Crystal, and we just want to see more of it.
Wow. But I believe that Sneaker Shack also helps to regenerate the life of those shoes. They don't just take the shoes and give it out to the next person.
Yeah, absolutely. So like the kind of model there is, you would donate your shoes, and we kind of try to incentivize people to donate the shoes. So if you did donate a pair of shoes, then you get 50% off your next clean, and so we take all the shoes and they go through the exact same treatment as any other shoe. Detailed cleaning. There's great packaging that goes with it. And essentially, just it feels like a gift, because it is a gift. So it's like they go through the same conditioning, just to have them, be as pristine as possible.
Just a quick question. For example, I tore one of my trail shoes the other day when I went down Sunbird in Klipriversburg, and can you fix this like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I mean that's like that's something that we can absolutely do. So like Sneaker Shack focuses on three main areas. So we have the refresh business, which is the cleaning business, and then we've got the repair business. So which deals with tears, unglued soles, stitching, all those type of repairs that a footwear would require. And then we also have the customization business. So if you're buying a gift for your friend, maybe buy them like a pair of white sneakers and you want to put happy birthday on them or something, we're able to sort of just customize it and make it feel a bit more personal. So those are the ranges, like those are the service ranges that we cover. So yeah, I'm glad you're getting out there and doing trail runs and getting your shoes torn. It's very intense.
Yeah, we are extremely fortunate to have amazing trails in the south. So yeah, we try and get to the trails at least once a week. But
that's amazing.
Just something that I find quite interesting. You seem to be extremely busy. Do you ever get time for family and friends and everything else that goes with it?
Yeah, I mean, it's it is quite busy, and things do tend to get quite chaotic, and days that do kind of run away with you. And I mean that is an absolute reality. But I think as time moves, and I think because I am from an entrepreneurial family, I think there's a lot of understanding, like in that. But I think what we've tried to do is just try to set a bit more, just try to block out a lot more time like for each other, and it hasn't been great. It hasn't been too consistent, but it's definitely like when I think about next year. I mean, next year is going to be a huge accelerating year, but like just trying to make a bit more time like to spend with family. It's not as as good and as consistent as I'd like it to be right now. That's definitely on my project list, Crystal, is just to try make more time for family and that type of downtime. So we have things like that are very important to us, like birthdays. Like regardless of where you are in the world, if there's a birthday, we're going to try and be on the same table, and just kind of celebrating that birthday. And we're very good with like Decembers and Christmases. So we're almost there. So I'm looking forward to a lot of family time soon.
Oh, awesome, awesome. Lolo, if you were 20 years old again, what advice would you give to yourself?
Oof. I mean, it's if my 20-year-old would listen to me, maybe. um, if I was 20, I think for me, I would remind him that, like, hey, like, you're okay. Like things are fine. Like the world is not, as scary as you kind of think it is. I think, I would probably tell him um, to start planning early. Like, don't spend too much time, living. I don't want to say living in the moment, but like, like you can never start too early. So start being a bit deliberate about intentions for the future, because the earlier you start, like the better it is. And I think the last one is, I'd probably advise him just to be, you know or just give him a heads up that there's the world's timing and then there's your timing, and it's okay if those two don't meet all the time. And I think that's kind of a story of patience. Like, I think, be patient with yourself and be patient with others.
But that's something you said you don't have a lot of.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So I, I think I would tell my 33-year-old the same thing as well.
I think we all have a bit of that problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what would be the metaphorical mountains that you still want to climb within the next 3 to 5 years, except wanting to become or going to become the next Protea sponsor?
Metaphorical mountains. Wow, that's beautiful. What be the look? So I mean, like, there's a lot of stuff happening in the business. I think one of them is definitely exploring the application of Sneaker Shack, on an international stage. So I think having some solid presence, in Europe, I think would be great, and something that we're working on at the moment. Expanding further into Africa, where there's tons of interest. I think that's also kind of a kind of more shorter term goal. So I think that's one thing. I'd really love to see Project Run playing a bigger role in society, just in general. Just by what we're seeing, at the moment with the impact that it's having. I think it would be great to really have it be a driver of tens of thousands of shoes a year, and growing to hundreds of thousands of shoes a year, and like literally creating this idea that South Africa are a people of generosity, and we're a people that considers the next person. I think there's a lot to be done there. And I think at a personal level, obviously as an entrepreneur, there's the whole bunch of ideas that sort of complement Sneaker Shack, or that I would sort of want to explore, and kind of grow, and hopefully in the next 3 to 5 years I would have conquered the mountain that is my patience problem. Also,
Okay.
I'd have loved to conquer that one too.
Okay, that sounds really, really interesting. But I quite like the whole that you mentioned Project Run as one of your metaphorical mountains. It sort of makes me think I was I was taking part in the Run the Berg a couple of weeks ago, and we had a similar campaign where you had to bring your old shoes. And it's amazing how people just give and they don't mind giving. In fact, I think a lot of people don't know what to do with their old running shoes, sneakers, etc., etc. Even their running clothes. We get all these shirts at all the races, and we hardly ever wear them afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And like, I think there's a beautiful community out there, and and I think what's important is like we have to highlight and lament these communities and say, hey, this is what's going on, and like, kind of, integrate them with, fantastic stories. And so it's certainly out there, it's certainly out there. And like, I think the good thing about generosity is it's contagious in such a fantastic way. It could only grow, and it could only create, a much better, softer and kinder society. So it's great to see, projects that are out there. And I think, part of this is just to kind of, how do we amplify that? How do we, partner and, and generate, like, one story, like, of this generosity that we're seeing, across the board. And, and that's something that's, unique to, yeah, I'd almost want to say South Africa, or South Africans, as as a people. And yeah, just really kind of shining that light on those attributes that we kind of hold as South Africans.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like you are planning to stay in South Africa.
Yeah, that I have no intentions to leave, Christelle. This is home.
It is very, very good to know. Even though you are planning to expand into other countries and Europe, etc., it is good to know you are proudly South African. But Lolo, you've mentioned a couple of books, authors along the way. What would you say is the most inspirational book that you have read? Is it possible to highlight one?
Yeah. I mean, I think the most important book for me, I mean, at the moment, I'm reading Nick Mallett's book. I think it's called World Cup Insights. So it's just kind of the story of how South Africa's done over the past in World Cups, and there's some really interesting stories that Nick shares with like with the reader there. I think it's always like momentary, and alongside that, I'm reading Russie's book. It's called Russie,
Mm-hmm.
And just kind of his story of like South African rugby, and just kind of his journey with with this whole you know and I think like for me, like there'll always be moments where a different type of motivation is necessary. And I think these two at the moment are probably my most sort of like important books. But I get the question, like like the holy grail, like what's that one book that is a must read. And I'm afraid it's not really a kind of a business book, like per se, or like there's no sort of application. It's not real sort of application into it in some sort of team building way or the organizational structuring way. I'm still, and it's very cliche, so you have to forgive me.
Mm-hmm.
It is cliche. So I would have to say it's still Paulo Coelho, the Alchemist.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I think that's one book that I'd probably give my son, just before he gets into this sort of adventurous world of like self-discovery. I think it just paints this fantastic picture of the ebbs and flows, and just the kind of magic that exists when like when one taps into this kind of depth of self, and putting a lot of emphasis in knowing oneself and how one relates to like to the world at large. And I think there's many works that have come before that kind of speaks the same language, but I think there's an ease in which the Alchemist reads, that's just kind of almost like a friend talking to you. So I'd have to say that's for me it's been an all-time sort of important book. As cliche as it is, I know it's very cliche.
No, I do agree with you. It is an absolute amazing book. But is there any you mentioned a couple of biographies, autobiographies. Is there any biographies about Lolo Ndlovu on its way?
Oh, I hope not anytime soon, because it's going to be too short. So it might have to give a bit more time for something like that. It's not anytime soon.
Okay, but I think we have to stick to your story and keep tabs on how you are changing the world one sneaker at a time. But Lolo, just a couple of wise words for our startup entrepreneurs out there, or even just our seasoned entrepreneurs that's going through a rough time. What would that be?
I think it's probably something that the kind of seasoned entrepreneur would already know, but like constantly revisit your why. Always go back to the reasons you started, like your business, especially when you're going through difficult times. Once you start interrogating your why, you'll often find a lot of the answers already exist in your initial interrogation of why you began this business. And also, I think, if you're going through like a tough time, that's okay. I think we kind of don't hear that enough. And I think the cliche there is, and it's true, it's absolutely true, is that as long as these tough times don't change the characteristics of your first principles and who you are as an entrepreneur, you'll be okay. So it's and please don't avoid the tough times. They are going to come. It's going to happen, as will the good times. And try to use those tough times as self-learning and self-defining moments, as opposed to self-harming and self-deprecating moments, even though that's what you'll feel. So counterintuitively, tough times, and rough patches, are often presented, in really stark ways, but equally, often, are the bedrock for, lots of opportunity. And, I think, do not be afraid to reach out. And I think lastly, failure is not the end. It's one step closer to success. So if you failed in something, that's that's a step closer to the thing that will actually succeed. So do not mark failure as the end all and be all. It's actually a progression to the next success.
Wow. Sounds like you need to start Sneakers Shack School of Entrepreneurship.
I mean, I'm kind of also talking to myself, because that advice. Just remind myself.
I know that feeling very, very well.